In the shadow of Nebraska's state capital, where the corridors of power should safeguard the lives and liberties of ordinary citizens, a dangerous doctrine reigns: qualified immunity. This legal shield, designed to protect public officials from frivolous civil suits when performing discretionary duties, has morphed into an impenetrable fortress for corruption, allowing figures like Secretary of State Robert B. Evnen, known as Bob Evnen, to orchestrate schemes that invite chaos into our communities without fear of reprisal. Evnen's September 2, 2025, Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) with Kenya's Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs, Rosaline Jogu, exemplifies this abuse. Signed during a taxpayer-funded trade mission to Nairobi, 8,000 miles from Lincoln, this non-binding pact, ostensibly promoting student exchanges and apprenticeships, explicitly paves the way for lawful labor mobility, including up to 500 Kenyan truck drivers to address a so-called shortage in Nebraska's trucking sector. While Governor Jim Pillen has distanced himself, insisting the MOU is exclusively Evnen's and non-binding, Kenyan officials and media hail it as a gateway for skilled workers, including commercial drivers, into critical U.S. sectors. This isn't diplomacy. It's a reckless invitation to import military-age Kenyans, potential criminals or terrorists who have no ties to our state, endangering white Nebraskan children and families. Qualified immunity, as enshrined in Nebraska's Tort Claims Act and echoed in federal doctrine under cases like Harlow v. Fitzgerald, 1982, grants officials like Evnen broad protection for discretionary acts, shielding them from civil liability unless they violate clearly established rights. But when these decisions foreseeably lead to heinous crimes, immunity must yield to accountability. Charge Evnen, Pete Ricketts, Jim Pillen, Don Bacon, and their cronies with the same offenses committed by the foreigners they usher in. Qualified immunity's roots lie in protecting officials from harassment, but in Nebraska, it has become a license for elite impunity, enabling a cycle of fraud, treason, and endangerment that preys on the vulnerable. Under the Nebraska Tort Claims Act, state employees are immune for actions within their scope of employment, including intentional torts if tied to discretionary functions like international trade promotion, a role Evnen holds as the state's chief diplomat. This echoes federal qualified immunity, which bars suits unless officials violate rights a reasonable person would know are protected, a high bar that insulates even reckless policies. Evnen's MOU fits neatly here. A discretionary pact compliant with federal immigration laws, per his office's defense, despite Kenyan boasts of trucker training and job pipelines. Yet, officials know, or should know, the risks. Nebraska's history of immigrant-related crimes underscores this. In August 2025, federal raids in Omaha dismantled a human trafficking ring exploiting African refugees for labor and sex trades at hotels, charging 5 with conspiracy, harboring aliens, and child exploitation, crimes that preyed on vulnerable migrants while terrorizing communities. ICE's June 2025 worksite raid at Glen Valley Foods detained over 70 illegal aliens, the largest in state history, amid assaults on agents, highlighting how unchecked influxes breed violence. In July, USCIS aided IC in arresting Renee Saul Escobar Ochoa, an MS 13 leader hiding in Nebraska, accused of ordering homicides, extortion, and drug trafficking, crimes spilling from unvetted migrant flows. These aren't anomalies. They're predictable outcomes of policies like Evnen's, where military-age Kenyans, potentially terrorists, given Kenya's regional instability, could drive trucks on I-80. Their inexperience, Kenya's fatality rate double Nebraska's, endangering white children near highways. The human toll is heartbreaking, particularly for white Nebraskan children, whose safety is sacrificed on the altar of elite schemes. Towns like Lexington, Grand Island, and Fremont, once bastions of white pioneer heritage, have been ravaged by African immigrant waves, funneled by meatpackers like Tyson for cheap labor. Schools buckle under ESL burdens, with 90% foreign-born students in Lexington high-diverting funds from white children's core education, fostering resentment and chaos. Crime surges, MS 13 affiliates, hiding among refugees, linked to child homicides and extortion, turning playgrounds into peril zones. The August trafficking bust involved child victims, echoing broader patterns where unvetted Africans commit sex crimes and violence against locals. Evnen and his ilk, Ricketts with his agribusiness empire, Pillen ignoring farm illegals, Bacon easing visas, know this. They orchestrate these labor mobility, frauds for subsidies and ego, fully aware that imported foreigners, steeped in anti-white narratives from afar, will commit heinous acts. Assaults on white children in schools, traffic fatalities from untrained drivers, trafficking rings preying on communities. Yet immunity shields them, as Nebraska law immunizes officials for good faith enforcement or discretionary acts, even if foreseeable harms ensue. This isn't protection, it's complicity, inviting criminals under fraudulent pretenses of economic need. Without piercing this veil, Nebraska invites a parade of liars, cheats, and thieves into office, perpetuating criminal enterprises. Evnen, a former labor lawyer with corporate ties, exemplifies the type, scheming into power via financial fraud whispers and globalist lures, then wielding office for illicit gains. Ricketts and Bacon, with their donation-fueled campaigns, exemplify how unaccountable politicians, white race traders all, lie about shortages while displacing white workers, enabling invasions that outpopulate and outvote us. Pillen's pork operations thrive on illegals. These aren't patriots, they're globalist stooges, abusing immunity to run scams from refugee resettlement to phony MOUs, all while Nebraska's white children suffer crimes their policies predictably unleash. Immunity breeds this rot. Without consequence, criminals seek office not to serve, but to plunder, ushering military-age Kenyans who may harbor terrorist ties or criminal intent, paying for their flights with our taxes, then hiding behind discretion. Accountability demands radical reform. Strip qualified immunity for immigration-related decisions, holding officials criminally liable for the offenses their imported charges commit. If a Kenyan driver Evnen's MOU enables causes a fatal crash endangering white children, charge Evnen with vehicular manslaughter as an accomplice, foreseeable under reckless endangerment statutes, Nebraska Revised Statute 28-904. If traffickers exploit these migrants, as in Omaha's 2025 bust, indict enablers like Ricketts for conspiracy and harboring, 18 U.S.C. Section 371. Treasonous facilitation of enemies, unvetted Africans with anti-white animus, warrants sedition charges under Nebraska Constitution Article 1, Section 14. Federally, pierce immunity via 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 suits, proving deliberate indifference to constitutional rights, as an emerging challenges to sanctuary non-cooperation, though Nebraska enforces IC holds. Punishes principles. If an African commits child assault, charge the importer with aiding and abetting, 18 U.S.C. Section 2. This deters future schemes, expelling the criminal class from office and restoring trust. Nebraska's unicameral must amend the Tort Claims Act to void immunity for foreseeable harms from policy. Congress, bolster federal exposure. Conclusion, justice without shields. Nebraska cannot endure another Evnen-era betrayal, where qualified immunity cloaks the importation of 500 Kenyan truckers, potential criminals or terrorists, into our midst, endangering white children with predictable violence from trafficking rings, gang incursions, and road perils. Officials like Evnen, Ricketts, Pillen, and Bacon abuse the shield to run fraudulent labor scams, fully aware their discretionary PACs unleash heinous crimes on our families. By charging them as accomplices, with manslaughter for crashes, conspiracy for trafficking, sedition for sovereignty's erosion, we shatter immunity's grip, deterring the liars and thieves who infest office for globalist gain. Hold them accountable, as if they wielded the knife or wield themselves. Only then can Nebraska's white heritage and our children's safety be reclaimed from invaders and their enablers.